Hi guys, it is a gorgeous day here in paradise in the end times, in the Hollywood Hills. But we're not in the Hollywood Hills for all intents and purposes. We're going to go over to Arizona today, and I am thrilled to announce that I finally have tracked down my old buddy and fellow doomsday tourist, Mike Sliwa, and we are going to have a conversation with Mike Sliwa. Before I turn it over to him, we're going to go over to his website for just a minute. If you do not know Mike, this is from his website, and we'll be right back with you here, buddy. About Mike Sliwa. Mike Sliwa is one of the foremost speakers on simple living. His presentations cut to the chase and address the trappings of a complex world. Whether you're an individual, institution, or organization, Michael has dynamic yet simple ideas that anyone can implement into their community. Michael lives a simple life that relies on the constant attainment of knowledge. He and his wife Karen are former educators who left behind their careers and most of their worldly possessions in order to pursue a life of genuine connectivity. For years now, Michael and Karen have been traveling, working, and speaking about what it means to live a life of simplicity. They have built a skill set that has allowed them to continue along a path where stress and chaos are left behind and efficiency and durability take their place. And that is a mouthful. And welcome, Mike Sliwa, to Humpty Dumpty Tribe.
Woohoo! It's good to be here. Thank you for having me, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. It took a while for these two rolling stones to gather enough moss to be in one place.
These 250-somethings figured it out.
Yeah, so I'm house sitting in California, and Mike's house sitting in Arizona. So we have finally found some internet. And yeah, real quickly, guys, there is a chance that this battery is going to die in the middle of this interview. At which case, don't worry, I'll change batteries and we'll come back. So anyway, welcome aboard, Mike. And is there anything you would like to add to that short introduction before we dive into?
No, I mean, I think I wrote that a few years ago, and I feel like it built me up more than I actually am now. I'm like,
are you
like, shit, I still drive a car and go to Walmart, so.
All right, well, okay, Mike, we're getting a little too comfortable with the body lag. Okay, there you go.
There we go. This is a PG show.
Yes, it's a PG show, and we have some foot fetishists out there, as it is. So anyway, now I've already told Mike we are not going. This is not going to turn into a show about Guy McPherson, but we're just going to get this out of the way. I expect that a lot of the folks listening to this have probably know you with your connection to Guy McPherson. Now, when one of our own tribe's members, Sandro, was interviewing Guy a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned in that interview, your name came up, and he mentioned that you were no longer with Guy. So let's just dispense with this and give a 30-second report on what that's all about. Then we're going to talk about you from here on out.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so Guy and I, we did a radio show, podcast, Nature Bats Last, on the Progressive Radio Network from August of 2014. And I think my last show was the beginning of May of this year. And I did 105 episodes co-hosting with him. And it was an incredible experience because, you know, I basically got to talk to all the people that really put me in the position I am now, which is, you know, house sitting and living the life that I really want to live. So Derek Jensen's of the world and John Zerzan and, you know, Daniel Quinn, Carolyn Baker, and so on. And for me, after Guy and I decided to go to once per month because Guy was basically moving out of the country, the dynamic of the show really changed for me because I didn't have to be on and preparing every week. And so for me, it lost a little bit of momentum for me personally. And quite frankly, after 105 episodes, and I don't know how you do it because you're prolific, I don't have a lot more to say about the Doomosphere. And I wrote a weekly article for the Good Men Project for a year and a half. I wrote probably 70 to 75 articles there, which I just gave up as well. And after a while, it just got to the point where I got tired of listening to the echo chamber of myself, and I didn't really know what else to talk about anymore. And plus, Guy being out of the country, it changed the dynamic for sure. It's a different thing because he's got to call in from down there. We used to talk every single day and see each other every single day. And now we barely, I haven't seen him since probably this fall. And so it's just our relationship changed. My attitude towards spending time talking about these topics started to change. I want to probably do a little more self-inquiry work on myself. I feel I've gotten to a point where I've awoken from civilization, but there's probably some other things I need to awaken to as well. And maybe pulling back a little from the Doomosphere is probably the best thing for me at this point because I live in a really cool community with some amazing people, and I think it's time to even take that skill set you mentioned before and improve upon that because I've been getting a little stagnant. So.
Well, before we get into that, to the which I do want the focus of this to be, I do want to spend a few minutes in the Doomosphere because that's kind of where this channel now. Of course, the first question on my mind is, I know that the reason we couldn't have a conversation a couple of days ago is because I was trying to get my car fixed and you were going grocery shopping. So I know this is a question you probably heard. And so this will be my leadoff question to you. Paper or plastic?
Actually, I have those bags.
Oh, you got your... You got your organic cotton recyclable.
Well, I should say I do. My wife does.
Of course. Karen is the one who remembers to bring. If
it wasn't for her, it would be paper.
It would be paper. Okay.
Of course. I mean,
this is a question that we all face, that every one of us faces, because we all forget to bring our damn bag. So anyway, you're going with paper. Okay, he is a paper man. Now, of course, the other battery just turned green.
You're set.
So we have a backup battery. Okay, all right. Seriously, though, okay. How? Just before we dive into the bigger question of what we as individuals can do about it, where are you in the Doomosphere, as you call it right now? How would you describe the state of planet Earth in a nutshell in summer of 2017?
Yeah, we're fucked. We are. Obviously, we got this heat wave going around the globe at the moment, but I think people kind of get distracted by that and go, oh yeah, look at what's going on. But things have been going on for a very long time. I just don't see. I talk to folks a lot about these things, and I get interviewed every once in a while, and it seems that when I talk to what I call the general population, people think we're just going to have this sort of epiphany as a civilized culture and sort of wake up to what we've been doing. And I don't see any evidence of that in what I observe. And I always tell people, if you want to really know what's going on, just go sit in a mall for about 15 minutes on a bench and watch people, and then ask, what are these people doing, and where is all this shit eventually going? And you start to just think about that. You don't even have to know anything about science and the weather or climate, and you can tell we're fucked because people have no idea what they're doing. They're just on autopilot, and they're not living with any sort of intent. And that's really what I don't see any evidence of this turning around. I don't know when it's going to go down, and that's one of the things I don't really fucking care, and I don't try to fixate on that. And so, yeah, we're screwed.
So that's
I'm not an optimist.
You are not an optimist.
No.
Yes, I was. We were doing some having some fun with a recent video on someone else whose name we won't go into, whether or not he's an optimist or not.
I know, that's why I said it, because I saw the video right before.
Yeah. Anyway, so you are not an optimist.
I am not an
so
optimist.
Welcome to the non-optimist club. Now, while we were talking before, I did determine, of course, which would always one of my number one questions. You do not have children, which is probably one of the reasons you have the freedom not to be an optimist. Can you talk about that? When did you decide you were not going to have children? And did it have anything to do with the state of the planet, your decision?
No, it didn't. I mean, it was pure coincidence. My wife and I, when we started dating, we and I don't remember exactly the conversation, but it basically determined that we both really liked our lives. And as we started to date more and eventually get married, we still enjoyed our lives. We had a great life prior to leaving our jobs and doing this. And so we never really wanted to roll the dice and change our lives. I mean, it sounds sort of selfish, but we really liked the way things were going. And to throw a kid in the mix, we knew that anything that we were experiencing would be gone instantly. And we watched friends and family have kids, and we just saw the consequences of that. And they would say things like, oh, yeah, but, it takes your life into a different place, and I'm sure it does.
I'm sure it does too. That's why I don't have it.
I'm sure it's great in some aspects, but I really had a kick-ass life up, and I still do, and I just didn't want to fuck with it.
There you go. Okay,
so we both agree on it.
I like your honesty, brother. But it was not a direct result of looking at the state of the planet and
no. I was married in '94, and I didn't really start thinking about these things until about 2004 through 2005.
Oh, really? So you started. So you're 50 years old now.
Yeah, I just turned 50. So
happy 50th birthday! This man just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago.
Appreciate it.
Happy birthday! Welcome to the 50s. I tell you, it's not for pussies. Anyway, so you mentioned, so you've just been down this rabbit hole. You just said 2004. Was there a particular event in 2004? Any one particular event you can credit or blame?
I think what actually started to happen is I started to look at the, for lack of a better term, my own demographic. I started to really get exposed to what it meant to be a white straight male in the civilized world, and I started to really dissect and peel back layers of who I was and where I sat on the hierarchy, and what that meant not only to society, but the planet at large. And so things like that just started to really to happen for me. People I had met, I started to do a little bit of speaking about white privilege, male privilege, patriarchy, and things like that. And once I became a teacher like 1999, and I went to the other side of the desk and I was no longer the student, I felt a certain responsibility for the information that I was delivering. Yeah. So I took that's really when I received my education, when I became a teacher. And so by about 2004, I was starting to really unravel who I was and where I stood in the greater scope of things. And by 2011, I was out the door and growing my hair out, apparently.
So you and your wife were both teachers as
yeah.
2011, and so your decision just to walk away from it. How from the time you first started getting that idea to the time you actually did it, are we talking 1 year? So it sounds like 7 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Guy McPherson wrote an article. An op-ed piece in the Arizona Republic, and my dad had a habit of showing me op-ed pieces that he thought were kind of goofy and loony, and he showed me Guy's piece, and it was titled something like, "It's the End of the World as We Know It," and it was about peak oil and the collapse of the industrial model. And he gave it to me, and I took it to work and showed it to my colleagues, and we all kind of laughed a little, but then we're like, well, maybe we should look into this a little. And we actually ended up calling Guy in a conference call during our lunch period one day, and as you've heard, Guy's got this very dry delivery and very matter of fact, and we listened to him for about a half hour, and it really started to hit home for us, and obviously it hit home a lot harder for me than them because I'm the only guy doing this. And that was 2008. By 2011, I was in full unravel, and I knew that the job that I was doing on some level, on a pretty big level, was really perpetuating a model that was devouring the planet. And I no longer believed in it in any level. And I said, like, I got to get out of teaching, and I don't really want to have a job because I don't want to produce anything. And so how can I do this? And so we went out the door, discovered woofing, and really started to figure out what not to do by living with folks, because all the folks we stayed with had gone out, lived very rural, bit off more than they could chew, basically took the life that they had in an urban setting, brought it to a rural setting, and were overwhelmed. And so they needed woofers. They needed people to work on the property. And Karen and I at that point knew that we didn't want to own, and we didn't want to do this ourselves. And so we started looking for community and eventually intentional communities. And we were fortunate enough to find one not too far away from where we first started down by Guy.
So you are living in, tell us a little bit about the intentional community, how it's set up, and do you recommend the model to other people going down this road, thinking about this right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of intentional communities out there. There's a database for it. If you just Google intentional communities, the database is the first link. And I spent many of hours just searching and narrowing down my search for the types of folks I wanted to live with, and it's in the states I wanted to live in. And I did that for a long time. And I read some books about it. And what I found out just by reading and making a visit or two is that most of the intentional communities that are out there, it's not this, it's not a utopia. They're just as dysfunctional as any sort of neighborhood sometimes, if not more. But what they're doing is they're doing something intentionally. In other words, they just buy a house in a fucking HOA neighborhood and they're living there and they can just sell it anytime. They've committed to trying something, a model, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, and it's not an easy thing to do. And we were fortunate enough to find a community that I call the most intentional community I've ever been in or seen or read about or witnessed and taken part in. Because most of the folks that I lived with had no intention of starting a community or remaining in this one very long. They were just like, I'm just going to stay here until it gets shitty, and then I'm leaving. And it never got shitty enough where they left, and it just ended up being a bunch of people who were highly independent, highly skilled, forming this community. And I was fortunate enough with my wife to be accepted into it. And
so you weren't one of the original members. You came.
No,
I
don't know shit compared to these folks. I mean, these were
hardcore guys.
Talented, wise individuals I've ever met. I mean, we have 4 folks that are, in their 70s, a couple folks in their 60s. We're kind of on the lower end. And so what's nice is we can do the heavy lifting and pick up some of the skills because, master growers, master builders, and know how to live without a lot of stress in their lives. So it was really, it's a magical fit. I don't know how it happened. I think there's a fair amount of luck involved in what happened to us. So.
Well, I think, what I feel like in so many of these, I lived on an unintentional community myself in Austin, Texas, but it seems to me like there has to be a central figure. At some point, somebody has to be the boss. Are you guys actually avoiding that?
We've actually, we sort of had that. Not while I've been here. I've only been on the property 18 months. But they sort of had a central figure. I mean, everything is done by consensus. So there's only like about a dozen of us. So it's not a huge deal to get something done. But once we started to what we call rotate the presidency, which is basically just putting your name on a piece of paper because it's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And once we start to rotate the facilitating of a meeting, because this group is totally anti-meeting. If we don't have to have a meeting, we don't fucking have one.
All right.
And so we have a meeting every 3 to 4 months if we have to. And we do not have a central person who is in charge. And since it's become more like that, it has become, from what I've gathered from talking to folks who've been there for years, much, much more smooth. But everybody lives highly independently, and we have group spaces. So it's a good balance. Like, everybody has their own sort of what I would call income. They have their own money.
And they have their own space. They have their separate space, yeah.
Yeah, we have our own separate space, but we also have a community kitchen. But everybody else has a place where they can cook if they need to on their own. We have a community bathhouse that has a shower and a tub, a sauna. We have community gardens, but we all have our own little gardens too. So it's kind of a good mix of, if I want to participate in this, like, we'll all go in together. If somebody wants to raise pigs, who wants to do that? 4 or 5 of us will do it for a season. We'll raise pigs, and then maybe we'll do it again in 2 years. And it might be a different group of 4 or 5 that do it, depending on who needs meat or whatever. So there's a lot of that. It's really ideal. I went to visit a intentional community in Missouri that had about 70 members, and incredibly great people, brutally honest about how it was to live there. But holy fuck, was it was so dysfunctional because they had more committees than they had people.
Yeah, and that's the opposite extreme from
Yeah.
Oops. What happened here? Well, that was ironic. Anyway, guys, just real quickly, this is going to be part 2 of the Humpty Dumpty Tribe interview with Mike Sliwa. We had all of this concern about the battery for the camera, so instead my Skype crap was somebody's Skype crapped out between after all our concern about the camera battery, and we still ended up. But anyway, just go in case you're joining this late, guys. This is part 2, and it'll be easy to find the link to part 1 of. So we were about 18 minutes into our discussion talking to Mike Sliwa, and he was talking about his adventures on his intentional or unintentional community in New Mexico, which surprisingly enough seems to be working out for him. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I think what, if I give any advice to folks is, it's not for everybody, but it is, if you can find a situation, and I would do a lot of visits, a lot of research, but if you can find a situation where you are not, and you want to do some homesteading, and you don't want to be this, solo living out in the woods kind of guy, and busting your ass 12 hours a day, I think a community is a great way to do it, because I don't have to grow everything. Everybody doesn't have to grow tomatoes, and I don't have to raise animals all by myself. So it's a good collective thing if you can find a group of people that fit. Now, I think the big problem that I've seen, and what we didn't have at the community that I live in, is most people, because it's an intentional community, they have this idea that this is the way it should be. And so they all come in, usually from suburban lives. It's a lot of white folks doing this usually, and they come in with these ideas about how the world should work, living in a community, and it never hits that, and then there's conflict. These folks that I live with left at a very early age. They were, most of these folks were doing what I'm attempting to do in my 40s and 50s. They were doing this in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so they figured out all the shit, and they lived by themselves for a long time, and realized that as they got older, they needed community more. And so they kind of worked out a lot of the kinks and got a lot of the infrastructure. And I, quite frankly, I tell them all the time, I just kind of rolled in when it was all set up and nice, and I didn't have to go through the growing pains. But it's a different thing, because we don't have that idea of what it should be where I live, because it never was supposed to be anything. It just kind of happened.
All right. So you do recommend this lifestyle to as opposed to doing it on your own like I've been doing it on my own for 8 years now. I've been
it depends on what you're going to do. I mean, like I have a former college or a high school classmate who's living up in Colorado, and he's got a cabin up at about 8,500 feet. He's all by himself, and he's got to drive in a dirt road for X amount of time. And for me, I think that's great, but I need social interaction, and I don't like to do everything by myself if I don't have to. And there's something about community building and living in community, and if it doesn't drive you fucking nuts and you have a good group of people. Now, it can be very stressful otherwise, and I can see it being hard to find a good fit because everybody wants to do this, like, oh, yeah, let's get our friends together and do this. But then when you start living with folks, you start finding out what they're like.
So, what I want to do is pull back a little bit, and the you and the other people on this community. Would you say we touched this in the first part of the interview before our Skype crapped out on us? From a species-wide stance, I think I already know the answer to this question. Is anyone in this community and in this movement believing that this is going to work to pull the human race and the planet out of the downward spiral it's in? You see what I'm asking? Or is it simply a way to stay out of the line of fire and cover your own ass?
Yeah, it's kind of more of that. I mean, I can't speak for everybody but on our property, but it's more of a way to navigate in between the spaces of the madness, I call it. It's a way basically to alleviate suffering and live with as much liberation as you possibly can in a culture where there's very little of it, and it's just all kind of like, you think you're free, but you're really fucking not. This is about as free as a space as I have been able to navigate and find. And I think most of the folks that I would, that live with me would probably say something very similar.
Okay, so it's not
it's not going to, if everybody lives in an intentional community, it's not going to turn this ship around if that's what you're getting at, because it's not. I mean, we all know that. Most of us, I think, know that. Again, I don't speak for all of us, but I think most of us saw the madness at some point. I was probably one of the last ones to see it, if not the last, in the group of people I live with, and they found a way to navigate this life and civilization in a way that brings them some peace and contentment, and that's really the reason why we're living the way we are.
Because that's the best you can do with what we have to work with is what it. And so this is the niche you found. Now, I also it's quite clear to anyone looking at the background of where you're sitting. It looks a lot like the background of where I'm sitting. That clearly you don't spend your whole life. I mean, I think I see a microwave oven sitting over a regular oven in the background, and maybe the side of a nice refrigerator. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yes, swimming pool. It's nice.
Oh, you got the swimming pool too?
Oh yeah, swimming pool, hot tub, the whole bit.
Man, I don't even have the hot tub.
Oh man, well, man.
But I live a mile from Kim Kardashian, and you know.
Well, there you go.
So obviously, Mike, you have not you have not completely walked away from global industrial society. I mean,
no, you can't. I mean, I know one person in my life who lives. I would call him a primitivist. I don't know if he'd call himself that. And he's about as far down the road as you can go about not dealing with the conveniences of the modern world and doing his best to not deal with the everyday hassles of whatever this is we're fucking living in, like, fantasy land or whatever it is. But, he's the only white person that doesn't live in the middle of the Amazon who was born into this culture that I think has gone about as far as a person could go, without basically trying, for the most part, doesn't use stores and things like that. But for me, my skill set, I could spend the rest of my life trying to get to the skill set he's at, that he's been working on for 40 years and never get there. And so I'm just trying, I tell people what I'm doing is I'm slowly, and it's very slowly, but faster than most, moving towards the exit of this. So I hope in 5 years from now, I'm using, if shit's still running and up, because I wake up every day and can't believe that stores are still going. But in 5 years from now, I hope that if the stores are still around, that I'm not in the store as much, and I'm living a life closer to the exit of this. I think there's no escape from it. I don't have the skill set. It's not the same planet. Everything's bought and owned. I mean, to find a situation where I can live on a piece of property and not be hassled for, what everybody else is hassled for, rent and
property taxes,
tax, all that.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's somewhat of a miracle that I found that little space in the world. So, but if there are those places that are out there, and I think what folks need to do is they actually need to start literally looking with intent, as I keep mentioning, to find these spaces and these nuances that they can navigate if they really want to get out of this. And the hardest part, as you and I both know, is actually fucking quitting your job and doing it and going out on that tightrope. And I don't want to give anybody this some sort of illusion that I took some big risk. I mean, I'm a white guy in the United States. I have a huge safety net under me. I can go get a fucking job still. Yeah. It's not like I went and moved in, Papua New Guinea and I'm learning how to shoot, a blow dart gun. So I could go back. I'm in a fucking house in, Tucson, Arizona. I'm house sitting because it's hotter than shit where I live, and I live in a tent. And so I can still get out of that. I still have incredible privilege and convenience. But I have found that the way I'm moving towards this exit, as I mentioned, is just a better way. It just feels better. And I had a great life as a high school teacher. But what I'm doing now, sitting around the campfire, talking to my friends, and, eating potluck once in a while and doing some gardening and going for a run out into the Gila, shit, I'm not going to trade that ever again for a job.
Yeah.
Or a career, I should say, not a job.
Yeah, but again, as we were talking before I turned the camera on, you're nobody, well, I'm sure 2/3 of the planet would argue this point with me. You entitled white male gringo.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say nobody can live without money. I'm living on less than 1/10 the money I was living on before. But before I pulled my head out of my ass.
Right.
My income and correspondingly my carbon environmental footprint has been cut by 90%, but I still understand that my footprint is bigger than most of this planet. But at the same point, you need some money, and this is the single biggest fear, I think, of people taking the step that you and I have both taken is, what am I going to do for the damn money? So what is
my fear? Even after I left the money for years, until really I moved in this community 18 months ago, I still would have these moments when I'd lay in bed and wake up at 3 in the morning and go, okay, my money is running low, and I need to do X, Y, Z, and I finally gotten to the point once I started living amongst folks who've been living on next to nothing for 30, 40 years that it's possible, and they're doing it well, and I live with them, and they can show me how to do it well or better. And so for me, that was a big thing. My wife, out of the gate, she was fine. Not a care in the world, knew everything was going to be great. And I'm like, are you my guru? Because I just can't figure this out.
so she is actually less concerned about the finances, about that God than you are. That's amazing, because the stereotype out there, and again we were laughing about this before I turned the camera on, is how the hell did you get your wife to agree with this?
And it's more her getting me to agree with it. I mean, the people that really know us, it's a total role reversal. I'm the woman, stereotypical woman, and she's the stereotypical guy. She is the hard worker, and I'm the one that complains a lot. And so, I'm your typical privileged white male, that you would see, like, maybe a kind of a frat boy that, came out and like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And, oh, shit, it's hard. Oh, it's hot. And And one of the first memories we had was we were working on Guy's property, and we were making a subterranean citrus house, and we were carrying out the foundation to make it go underground more. And so we were carrying out buckets of dirt in these 5-gallon white buckets, walking up and down these stairs for a couple hours. And like a half hour into it, she goes, "This is so meditative." And I was thinking, my fucking arms are killing me. Can I get my job back?
But you haven't gone back into teaching.
No, I have not gone back into teaching. I may do some tutoring because, I'm like you said, I need to, money's not going anywhere, and I don't know how to fucking, I can't go hunt and gather quite yet. So.
But you're working. So you say money isn't going anywhere. So you're not. Are you not one of these people who is waiting for the global economy to crash like the day after tomorrow?
It will. I mean, then it will go somewhere, clearly. But for the meantime, I'm not one of those guys that's... I would like to live without money. I just know that I am a long way skill-wise from doing that. Not only skill-wise physically, but skill-wise emotionally from getting there. I think it would be great if I didn't have to deal with money and we could just barter and do gift economy and trade and all that neat stuff. But unfortunately, there's only a few of us that are into that.
Yeah, so, and I don't know about you, but I haven't found that Exxon and Shell and Chevron are ready to join the gift economy quite yet.
No, not quite.
That gas sucking car. So you do now on your TED Talk. Now I do want to highly recommend for folks. We're just having an informal conversation between two guys and the two peas out of the same pod here. But on his TED Talk, this man actually got on the TED Talks. I am so impressed that even to be able to interview someone who has been on TED Talks. Wow, you're the first TED Talk person I've ever interviewed.
Well, it's TEDx, so just like...
Okay, TEDx. Well, it's the farm team, but hey, man, it's close enough. But that's an excellent 18-minute talk where this is more concise as they do on TED Talks. Yeah. But I believe I heard you mention on TED Talks that the first thing you did was that you and your wife sold the gas-sucking car. But I understand that lasted 4 years, and you've gone back to the gas-sucking car. You have one in between.
We live about 35 miles from the closest legit place to get food, grocery store, and so convenience-wise, my wife wanted to get a car, and we were renting cars because we're still doing a fair amount of traveling, visiting relatives, going to graduations, blah blah blah. We spent about $2,000 a year on rental cars, and she's like, we should just get a car for $2,000, and if it lasts a year, then we have the freedom, and we broke even. And so that's what we've done, and it's lasted beyond the year that we thought, and it looks like, knock on wood, that it should last us a few more. So yeah, it's a nice convenience. I do appreciate the fact that I lived without a car for 4 years, and I know how to do it. I know that sounds goofy sometimes, but I can, I figured out that I can actually pull it off.
But admitted it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks, and let's be honest here.
Yeah, like when I want to leave, I can't just leave. So yeah, it's nice having a fucking car.
I missed that car for those 6. I missed it more than the. Well, you didn't give up sex like I did because you have a wife. But I seriously, I missed that car more than I missed sex, than I missed all the friends that I had lost, and my $100,000 a year job that I walked away from. It was that gas-sucking car. Caused the lack of that. It's just that beat my ass more than anything else.
The thing is, I mean, you know this, we live in a culture that is not conducive to walking or taking public transportation. It's just not built that way. I mean, it'd be a different story if you lived in other parts of the world, but where we live, everybody's got to own something, and we're all spread out, and everybody's got their own space, their own vehicle, and I lived in Phoenix for 15, 16 years, and shit, you can't walk anywhere there. It's dangerous because there's a sidewalk right next to the freaking road that's going 60 miles an hour.
Well, and the heat, because I did it for 6.5 years. Well, for about half of that was in Austin, Texas, when I was down there in Peru and Ecuador, it wasn't that big a problem. But I mean, just in Austin, Texas. I mean, just dealing with the heat. There's not a bus at all. So where Mike lives, guys, is right down the street from West Bumblefuck, New Mexico. I mean, you could almost throw a rock and hit it, his place from Mark's place in West Bumblefuck. But there's not even, is there even a Greyhound that comes through there at all?
I think the closest Greyhound to me is in like Deming or Lordsburg.
Yeah, that's right. It's Deming. I mean, Silver City isn't even serviced by Greyhound.
No. And Silver City's an odd place. Like, you got to want to go to Silver to go there, because where we live is you've been in that area. You're not near anything. You tell people you live in New Mexico, they go, oh, near Albuquerque? No. Gallup? No. Las Cruces? No. Roswell? No. And it's not near anything. It's not near the I-10, and it's nobody. You got to like jump off path to get there. So that's a good thing, because I like that we're that isolated in a lot of ways. But it's also difficult, like you mentioned, if you want to live without a car.
There's no way you're going to live that you're going to live where you live, which is also right down the street from the Mud Hut.
About less than a mile.
Yeah, all of Mike's place, Guy's place, and Mark's place are all within a few miles of each other out there. But what the hell would you do without the fossil fuels to get?
I guess what's nice is I lived amongst folks who had cars. So I live in a community where there's a few other car owners, and when I lived by Guy, he had there were 2 cars there. So. And every once in a while, people are going to town off and on. So all you would do is figure out, okay, if you're going to go to town Tuesday, I'll go with you and pick up the groceries.
That's it. Yeah, but you construct your entire life around that, about getting from point A to point B and back again. How much of my life was eaten for 6.5 years simply trying to figure out how I'm getting from point A to point B today.
Right, absolutely.
And do you see any hope of humanity disentangling? I see this whole the gas sucking car thing. Even if fossil fuels weren't involved, people act like I get so pissed about this. And I agree, we need to get rid of fossil fuels, but fossil fuels, that's the asshole of the car. We've got the whole rest of the car. Everything about cars is destructive to this planet, and there's twice as many of them. There were 1 billion of them when? Like 6 years ago, there were 1 billion, and now there's 2 billion.
Yeah, I mean, just drive by a mine, it's just this big hole in the earth. Where do you think all these metals come from?
Yeah, that big hole over there by Silver City. Good God.
Yeah. Silver City, near Globe, Miami, all those places. Yeah, I mean, Tyrone. Yeah.
So you don't see the world unplugging from fossil fuels.
This baby's going to run off the cliff, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, if you start looking at Guy's last video, I think he starts talking about what it might look like. But yeah, I think we're just going to run this bad boy. We'll keep negotiating with the non-negotiable, with something that's totally not negotiable, until we run into that wall, and then we'll go, oh shit, and then it's everybody for themselves at that point. Although it seems to be like that already, isn't it? So
it's good. Well, yeah, driving around L.A. yesterday, I was remarking, just driving down the road in some godforsaken hellhole called Sun City or something. Now, I'm thinking, in this damn town, in L.A., within 24 hours of the gas running out.
Oh.
No, it's going to be. I mean, the National Guard is going to be helpless. It is going to be a bloodbath, Mad Max, within 24 hours in Los Angeles, California, when the gasoline runs out.
Well,
this town is 100% dependent.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was teaching in Phoenix, and I think it was about 2005, I came back. I don't know. I think I was gone for a week. I went to I think I played in some volleyball tournament, and I came back, and I was driving to work, and all of the gas stations had yellow tape around them. And I'm like, what's going on? And they had a gas pipe issue between Tucson and Phoenix, so there was no gas coming into Phoenix for like a few days. And you would have thought that the world had ended.
Well,
everybody's bringing anything that they ever owned that could take gas. They're hoarding all the gas, filling up their fucking 8 weed whackers and people waiting in line and people gouging for gas. And I'm like, that's just gas. If it was water?
Oh yeah. But I don't know. Sometimes I think people are more addicted to gasoline than they are to water. Anyway, well, brother, I've really enjoyed it. But we're just pretty much sitting. I have to admit, this has been the loosest, most unstructured interview yet, and I figured it would turn into this because you and I truly seem to be two peas out of the same pod.
Yeah.
And I could go on all day with this conversation, but anyway, I should probably wrap it up because I need to get my own gas-sucking car together because I'm heading down to Venice Beach.
Right on, great place.
And I don't know what's gonna turn up at Venice Beach on Saturday afternoon in the summer of 2017. One thing my buddy and I, what we're thinking is, I don't know if you know this guy Mark Dice. Who I used to like, but I've lost respect for the man. But one thing he does is he goes up and down the beach here, and he's actually out in San Diego, interviewing clueless morons. So I'm thinking one idea I have is to go up and down Venice Beach holding a $20 bill, offering it to the first person that we find who can tell us who Guy McPherson or Derek Jensen are. And the first person, but then they can't use Siri, so we can't like hold a sign, who is Guy McPherson, up, because then they would just like, you know what I'm saying. So anyway, that's one idea I have, but we'll come up with something.
Venice is always fun.
I wish you were there with us, brother. Something tells me we could have a hell of a throwdown on Venice Beach.
It's one of my favorite places in the world. I haven't been there in about 10, 12 years, but I love Venice. Anytime I can get near it, I go. So.
All right, I will give Venice your love. And before we go here, now I'm going to try to remember to put the link to your excellent TED Talk. But if I forget, guys, just go on to TEDx and put in Mike's.
Yeah, if you put in like Chasing a Different Carrot, which is the title of the book as well, you can find that TED Talk and probably a couple other. I think I have 2 TED Talks that are titled like that as well. And then if you want to read the book, you can find it on Amazon. So
that's your book, Chasing a Different Carrot. All right. So I need to read that myself. And you have a website? Or a blog? Yeah,
so the website is michaelsliwa.wordpress.com. Sliwa is how you spell my name. So michaelsliwa.wordpress.com.
All right, brother. And
thanks, everyone.
And looking forward to comments. Hang around here for just a minute. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, then I'll come back. So hang out around for just a minute. So anyway, guys, that was part 2 of our technologically interrupted interview with Mike Sliwa, and it has been fun, and I look forward to doing this again. But for this interview, we're going to wrap it up and say bye, guys.
Peace.
There you go.